Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Hat Chat number 25, right? The whole quarter century mark. Again, not to be a broken record, had no idea I'd get to this stage this early. But you know what? Like I said, if it happened the way it happened, then I can't complain about it. Um, it's wow. Like I said, it's just a function of energy levels. I have no promises in terms of being able to keep this up at a daily pace. I just happen to have the energy for it right now. So I'm doing it. But if you're rocking with me today, hopefully you're having a great start to your Sunday. I know I had a pretty good start. Not an eventful start, but a pretty good start. And got my walk in today, got my coffee in, got a couple, like, obviously I did the research for the show today, just in case. Like I said, the whole point of like doing the showcasing the hat. So today's hat of the day is this Resistol fedora. If you notice, if you saw me yesterday, you saw that I was wearing the Stetson Downs, which was not a stingy brim. That Stetson Downs happened to have a 2 3/8 inch brim, so not a stingy brim. Again, that formal definition of a stingy brim, at least for me, is anything with a 2 inch or lower brim. And then you can see here, I mean, hopefully you can tell I'm back on my stingy brim, right? Um, I never really did a count on the number of hats that I have in my collection that happen to be a stingy brim, but it's a lot. Meaning, stingy brims compose probably the great majority of my hat collection. I just think like it just fits with my style. Again, it's not that I don't love the traditional bigger brims. I don't know if I could pull off something like a 3 inch brim. You know what I mean? I feel like there's like some sort of limit there, and maybe that Stetson Downs that I wore yesterday was my limit. I don't know. I've not now in my defense, I haven't tried a 3 inch brim, but you know what? Ian, my man, how's it going, Ian? Ian from London, one of my faithful moderators. How's it going, Ian? How's your Sunday so far? Hopefully it's going okay. I don't know what kind of weather you have over in final London. We are having lots of sunshine here in the DC metro area. Um, like I said, even if it wasn't sunshiny, I'd try to make it a good day, but it just happens to have sunshine. So I'm extra smiley. Um, it's just you gotta love it when you get up and then I ask I find out about the weather and it says no rain expected. Again, I have no problem with rain. I know we need rain, but I'm just somebody that really relish going out on my walk. And then I have to kind of come up with a contingency plan, right? So, I talked about this in my early live streams. At some point, I'm going to acquire a treadmill here. And then, hopefully you guys won't mind if I have a standing desk, so maybe I'll stand my desk up and you guys can watch me walk and talk, right? We'll have it Luke's walk and talk. Ian says, just got off another talk. Nice weather but a bit cooler. Yes, same over here. We're now heading into the more of that fall weather. So a lot of my folks that are really into their Panama hats, their straw hats. Now is the time, probably, if everything is the same, if your weather's similar to mine, now is that time for those folks to start putting those straws to the side and breaking out those felts, right? And like for me, not the case because one, I only own one straw, which I now posted, right? So I got now 3 posts on my YouTube channel. I got my granddad, my dad, both in fine hats. And then the third is me in my very first hat, at least the hat that started it all in my hat journey. And it's that blue straw cheap felt fedora that I picked up in Split, Croatia. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened where I was like, it was just, I was feeling it, right? I just said, you know what? The weather was perfect. This was like early May or maybe mid-May in Split, Croatia. So the Mediterranean just has, the way I understand it, the Mediterranean has a busy season in around June. But if you happen to go and visit in early May or mid-May, you kind of, one, you beat the crowds, right? So, and then two, you get some gorgeous weather. The only problem is if you like to swim, if you're into the Mediterranean, you like to swim, maybe it'll be a little cold for you, but I don't swim. Ian says it might rain later when I go out, so I shall wear my waxed newsboy cap. Hey, shout out to the caps, to the flat caps. The newsboy cap is an iconic look. Probably better for dealing with that weather. That's what, again, that's one of the things in terms of like, we always talk about like the aesthetics of hats, but Ian and then also Paul really bring back home the idea that you know what, it is about aesthetics to a certain degree, right? But hats have a functional basis, and that's part of the way you kind of create your hat collection. Say, okay, what do I need just to deal with the elements if I'm going to go out for a walk, right? And if you don't go out for a walk, I recommend it. You know what I mean? Besides being good exercise, I feel like besides your physical health, it's good for your mental health, I want to say. I know that it serves that function for me. So if you're somebody that really doesn't like walking around, it doesn't have to be for a long time. I happen to do a half-hour walk, but even if you just do 5 minutes, 7 minutes, or and work your way up to like 10 minutes, I think just to be able to get some sunlight, it has a lot of utility. But again, it's one of those things where, I can't, I don't want to sit there and force the issue. Just some people just don't like walking, I just find that walking is a lot easier on your knees than something like running, right? So a lot of folks are like all or nothing. It's like, if I can't run, Luke, if I can't run, I'm not going to walk. You know what I mean? I'm just not going to do anything. And I'm like, I feel like that's a little bit, I don't know. That's kind of like throwing out the baby with the bathwater to me. But you know what? So such is life. That's the beauty of choices, right? We make a lot of choices. Sometimes when we don't make a choice, right? When we choose not to walk, it's still a choice, right? Choosing not to do something or choosing not to make a choice is still a choice. And I have to respect it. You kind of, like I said, like the kids say, you do you, I'll do me, and hopefully we can coexist here. And maybe you can still, hopefully still hang out with me, even though I'm a walker. I'm one of those walkers, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's been a beautiful day, beautiful start to the morning. Got my walk in. Actually had a very interesting interaction, out there. I just saw a lady. I saw a lady walking by, and then I saw a car kind of following her. And I thought that was a little weird. It just seemed like the car was tailing. So I don't know if it seemed like they were having an interaction, and then I started seeing like the interaction was a little, you know, uh, uh, you know, a little heated, right? Uh, um, so I didn't want to just like be somebody that just passes by and just doesn't say anything. I think at some point the gentleman, I think it was a gentleman that was in a white car, essentially. I mean, he might have noticed me because I went and I basically yelled at the lady across. She was across the street, and I just told her I didn't know. She looked like she might have spoke Spanish, but I didn't want to assume. So I just said, "Hey, are you okay?" Because I saw her kind of walk sort of away from me and then walk towards me, like, but on the other side of the road. And I didn't want to kind of, I want to mind my own business, but at the same time, if somebody needs help, and get away, I want to make sure that I'm there. Not that I'm some kind of tough guy or anything. I just feel like it might have been a domestic situation. You never know what somebody's going through, right? But at the same time, I want to make sure that this lady, I'd never seen this lady before. I don't know who was in that car. I never seen the car before. But I just wanted to make sure that I didn't ignore it, right? Because we tend to, especially when you're coming from a big city like myself. Obviously, Ian, you're from London. It's probably very similar. We tend to kind of just assume that somebody else is going to do something, right? Somebody else will help that lady. And it turns out she didn't really need help. She didn't, it wasn't that, stressful. But like I said, if you see something, say something, right? Again, it's a dangerous world out there, but at the same time, we still got to go out and help each other, right? So shout out to that lady and that man. Hopefully, if they were something where it was a domestic situation, they worked that out, right? I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, maybe they got into an argument that morning and she stormed out the house. He went out and chased her, but you know what? It's just not worth it. You know what I mean? Like if I had to, I didn't get a chance to talk to the gentleman, and hopefully he's not offended by me trying to offer help to the lady. But ultimately, it was a bad situation, right? So essentially, that gentleman could essentially, while he's trying to hold the conversation with this lady and following her, you could have a situation where he could run over somebody trying to cross the street, right? We never think about these things that, and how they could happen. But hopefully by me interjecting, right? It looks like what happened was when she walked the other way, the gentleman decided, I guess maybe he saw me and decided better, and then kind of just walked away. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm sorry, drove away. So I don't know what I kind of interjected in. Honestly, I didn't bother the lady. I just said, "Hey, you okay?" She gave me the thumbs up, and then kind of like she looked like she was kind of teared, was crying a little bit, and then kind of walked. She did a kind of a beeline into the, I'm assuming where she lives, and I just left it alone. It's like I did something. Hopefully, I prevented something bad from happening. And if not, maybe I prevented nothing. Maybe I just didn't mind my own business. But again, that's just the kind of way the guy I am right now. At least right now in my headspace, like I'm not gonna allow that stuff to kind of happen. Only because I'm usually thinking a few steps down the road, right? Like you don't get to be close to 50 and not learn how some things happen, and you just don't see it happening, and people don't see it happening because they're just too busy in their own world. And whatever. I don't know what came of it. Maybe I'll find out at some point. If I ever find out what happened with that situation, I'll let you guys know. But as far as I'm concerned, it's over. I did something. I think I did something positive. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, yeah. Just hopefully, I just want to share these stories because one, I want to kind of give you a little bit of insight into my day to day. And I try to keep it positive if at all possible. That seemed like it might have not started positive, but I think it concluded positive. Hopefully everything was okay on that front. And also it could be a lesson, right? You never know. You might be going through something similar and empathize with either myself or the gentleman or the lady. But whatever it is, you really kind of, yeah, I bet she appreciated someone. Yeah, she kind of, when I did that, I think she immediately realized that that one, she wasn't like alone, and she probably didn't need any help from me whatsoever. I'm not trying to be presumptuous and peg myself as some sort of hero. I'm not a hero. I'm not a vigilante. But again, not every hero wears a cape, right? And plus, I look terrible in tights, to be honest, right? Anyway. It looked like everything was resolved. Again, domestic situations happen, fights happen. Sometimes it spills out into the street. I don't necessarily recommend you always kind of interject yourself, right? That's something that I choose to do. But you guys, you guys have to be street smart, right? There's certain situations that you have to kind of use your better judgment, because maybe instead of interjecting yourself, a better option is to just call the police, right? I don't kind of regardless of what I do, right? Take my advice and just kind of you be street smart, know the situation, know what you're dealing with, because you never know, right? Like that gentleman, who knows, right? Who knows what was going through that gentleman? That guy could have just stopped his car, uh, um, came out there and just tried to wail on me, and I protect myself just the way I always would. But who knows, right? You may not get hat chat number 25 if that would have happened. Or maybe I would have just gone live from the hospital. Hopefully I would have lived through it and said, hey guys, I'm just getting stitched up right now, but you should see the other guy, right? I was like, a little bit of Puerto Rican judo. Shout out to my to my judo, my judokas out there. I do not know judo. That's just something that people that are from Brooklyn, especially if you're Puerto Rican, kind of know about Puerto Rican judo. If you do know about Puerto Rican judo, look it up, right? And then maybe you can have a laugh about that. But yeah, shout out to all my Puerto Ricans, my fellow Puerto Ricans, and my judokas out there. No offense. But Puerto Rican judo is something that's kind of a known thing, right? Shout out to Big Pun, who actually mentioned it in one of his songs uh, uh, about Puerto Rican judo. So if you're a fan of Big Pun like I was, rest in peace to Big Pun. We lost him, I believe, in 2001. I think he was like less, man, I think he was less than 25 years old, you know. But there's a lot of lessons to be learned from lives like Big Pun, right? Big Pun has a son that's a YouTuber as well, Chris Rivers, right? Which is a great name, also a very talented individual, very talented rapper, probably just as talented, and who maybe knows who could be probably more talented than even his dad. And you know, Chris Rivers, you know, his dad was Christopher Rios. And my guess is that he decided to anglicize his last name. Rios happens to be rivers in Spanish, for those folks that don't know. And his son adopted the moniker Chris Rivers instead of Christopher Rios, his dad. And very, very great kid, very, very smart kid, and also very talented, right? Maybe I'll get Chris Rios, Chris Rivers, the son of late great Big Pun, Christopher Rios, from the Bronx, New York. Essentially one of probably the greatest Latino rapper of all time. So, you know, again, you may not like rap music. That I do. I grew up on it. Rap and hip hop was kind of like I said, I learned a lot. You know, and I still learn from a lot of folks. The nice thing is that a lot of rappers now are my age, right? And it's interesting to see the progression, the life progression, and the content, right? You got Jay-Z, who's from Brooklyn as well, just like me. Jay-Z is somebody whose content, right? Even his look has evolved, right? We talked about not staying stagnant in your life journey, and in your musical journey. Ian, I know you're a musician as well, and I know that probably Ian, the music. Let's say you were playing music all your life, right? I'm positive that the music you were playing maybe 20 or 30 years ago, maybe it's not the same music, or at least the same sound, right? You probably evolved your sound. Maybe to fit your life journey, you know, and whatnot. And that's a beautiful thing, right? And it's nice when you're when you see an artist progress, right? You'll get their first album, and then you see that you'll get their second album, and maybe you get the third album, and then you'll see the evolution of the sound. A great band that I really happen to love was Stone Temple Pilots, right? Stone Temple Pilots were a great band, and you saw the evolution, right? I believe I owned the first three albums, and I believe they started off with Core. Core was their initial album, which was very, very grunge, right? That grunge sound that was very much synonymous with Pearl Jam, which everybody said Stone Temple Pilots was a Pearl Jam ripoff. Sorry, but I don't happen to agree. I like Stone Temple Pilots. I'm not a big fan of Pearl Jam. So when they tell me they're the same, I'm like, they can't be the same, because I like Stone Temple Pilots, but I don't like Pearl Jam. It's not that I dislike them. It's just they're not my thing. But then you got to see Purple, and Purple, their sound evolved, right? And then they put out an album called Tiny Music, right? It's like a very long album title, I think, but it starts off Tiny Music. And then they start sounding more like the Beatles, right? So Scott Weiland must have gotten like some inspiration, and maybe the rest of his bandmates. I believe the DeMeo brothers were two brothers that were in that band. I don't know. Sometimes I don't remember. I love a band, but I don't remember all the band members. But I do know Scott Weiland is no longer with us. But the music that he left behind, in that group left behind, is iconic, right? Interstate Love Song, right? One of my favorite songs of all time. Interstate Love Song. Great music by Stone Temple Pilots. I recommend them. Ian, you recommended Ska Cubano. I'm in the process of getting that music, so I'll let you know. I will tell you to my good friend Ian, who's also a moderator here, that I went and I rewatched the first half hour of Public Enemies. Wow, what a great movie. And I guess I didn't realize how long that movie was. What a long movie, right? And then I also didn't realize that it was a Michael Mann movie. Michael Mann made some really iconic films, and I believe Michael Mann also made the movie Heat. right? Probably if Michael Mann made that movie, that's probably one of my favorite, or maybe the favorite Michael Mann movie that I can recall was Heat, right? Heat was a classic cops and robbers type of drama. Right, and they had basically, well, it had a star-studded cast to begin with, but the antagonists and main protagonists were Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, right? They returned on stage, and it was iconic, especially that scene where Pacino goes and meets up Robert De Niro in a coffee shop, right? And they have that famous exchange, right? Wow, what an iconic scene, right? And we know they've done films, right? They were in Godfather Part 2, right? But they really didn't interact on screen in Godfather Part 2, right? What you had was you had Robert De Niro play young Vito Corleone, and then you had Al Pacino play Michael Corleone, right? So the two characters didn't really interact. It kind of like they were two stories that were playing at the same time and interchanging. It was very beautifully done, right? So obviously everybody knows Godfather Part 2 is beautiful. But we had Heat, and then the modern iteration, right, that you had them return back was The Irishman. Very, very good movie. I don't know if I would put it up there with the Godfather movies, but in my mind, it's up there in terms of that genre. So if you haven't seen The Irishman, great movie, obviously filled with a lot of controversial details, right, about Frank Sheeran, which is played by Robert De Niro. Obviously, a lot of the folks that lived that life, debunked a lot of those rumors, right? They will tell you that Frank Sheeran, for a fact, did not kill Jimmy Hoffa, right? Jimmy Hoffa was played by Al Pacino in that movie. But doesn't matter, right? Like I always say, it's like, doesn't really matter whether it's full of all facts. We don't always, at least me, I'm not somebody that has to be in a movie that has all facts, right? Like I leave that to the documentaries. Like, Mann directed Heat and also wrote it. Yes. Shout out to Michael Mann. He is a classic. Public Enemies, I got to think, is also a classic. And he has a series of them. I mean, again, Michael Mann, if you know Michael Mann, you kind of know, and you either like him or you don't, right? It's like Quentin Tarantino. So many people I meet, they're like, it's almost like peanut butter. And, you ask somebody whether they like peanut butter or not, you got those people that like peanut butter and those that hate it. Usually not a lot of folks in the middle, right? You either like it or has kind of like Nutella as well, right? And I'm sure like some people are peanut butter people, other people are Nutella people. And Michael Mann, just like Quentin Tarantino, just like a lot of directors, you either like it and love it or you don't. So yeah, you guys got me on the movie kick, right? Ian suggested that I do a movie segment. I will do that. I don't mind doing that by myself. I will also invite, like, obviously I would love to do that with Ian, but Ian, Ian, you might not be somebody that wants to get on camera, but it doesn't mean you can't do what you do right there. So maybe it'll be me and somebody else that really loves hat movies, right? Really big into hat movies. I'm into movies in general, not just hat movies. But there's so many great hat movies, right? I mentioned on the past stream, the modern gangster movie from 1990, King of New York, with Christopher Walken, Lawrence Fishburne, David Caruso, Wesley Snipes. There were others in there. Steve Buscemi, right? And besides being a good gangster movie, it's actually underrated. Quentin Tarantino goes on and on about how much he loves King of New York. If you haven't seen an interview with a film nerd, right? Regardless of what you think about Quentin Tarantino, he is a film nerd, and he just goes on and on about how great he thought King of New York was. And besides being a good gangster movie, it is a good hat movie, right? So you got Lawrence Fishburne's character. I forgot his name in the movie, but he wore a bowler hat. So Lawrence Fishburne, and he's the one character that Quentin Tarantino goes on and on about how Lawrence Fishburne was kind of like that. Like he was ahead of his time when he created that character and he played that character. And I happen to agree with him. Again, I just don't remember his name, but he wore an iconic bowler hat with a leather jacket and a rope chain, right? So it's a rope chain. Like if you grew up in the 80s around hip hop culture, you know that they called it the Dookie rope chain. I don't know why they called it the Dookie rope chain, but it's iconic. You saw Run DMC wear it. You saw LL Cool J wear it. You saw Slick Rick wear it. But it's iconic in hip hop culture. So it really was, yeah. Great actors, all, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, this was Steve Buscemi before he was Steve Buscemi. There was also the gentleman that was in it that had a bit role as part of Christopher Walken's gang. He was the gentleman that played Gus Fring in Breaking Bad. I think his name was Giancarlo. I can't remember his last name. If you guys know him, but he is a very well-known and very well-respected actor. Spike Lee, he appeared in Spike Lee's movie Do the Right Thing, another great movie. Maybe not as great for hats, but another great movie. Yeah, so King of New York. So besides Lawrence Fishburne and his bowler hat, Steve Buscemi, a younger Steve Buscemi, was there, and he had a character called Test Tube, right? And Test Tube wore a pork pie, a black pork pie hat. And Test Tube was really called Test Tube because he was the guy in Frank White. That was the character played, the Kingpin, played by Christopher Walken. Very, very well, very iconic, right? Notorious B.I.G., the rapper, one of his nicknames was Frank White, and it was after Christopher Walken's character. Jimmy Jump, yes, Jimmy Jump. Yes, Lawrence Fishburne was Jimmy Jump. Thank you, Ian. So if you go and you look at photos of King of New York, you can see that iconic shot of Christopher Walken being visited by his gang just after he got out of jail. And Jimmy Jump is right there. He has a drink in his hand, and he had just gotten, well, anyway, I won't spoil it, but it's iconic. And you see Test Tube there with his pork pie, really iconic shot. Just a great film, and in that character, right? So it's not just like Frank White is not a character that's just cookie cutter, right? He's very much like a Robin Hood type character, right? So if you know what I mean when I say Robin Hood, he was somebody that was obviously a very bad individual. He sold drugs. He killed people. He did a lot of nasty things, but he did it like his goal was not to just keep all this money. He was trying to get really rich so that he could help the community out by building hospitals and things like that. I'm like, wow, like what a complex character, right? And it's one of those things where I'm like, I feel like Christopher Walken is, I think he's appreciated to the degree that he should be, and other times I feel like he's underappreciated, right? Shout out to Christopher Walken. He's obviously he's become a meme with the more cowbell, right? But Christopher Walken's a lot deeper than that. He's just one of those underappreciated. I think once, many years down the road, when Christopher Walken is no longer acting, I feel like somebody's going to really, really cement him and give him his due, because he comes on this movie like Pulp Fiction. He comes on to Pulp Fiction, steals the show, right? Like everybody remembers Christopher Walken from Pulp Fiction, right? With the watch, right? Like that's a movie that, like, I gotta imagine that maybe Quentin Tarantino saw King of New York and said, you know what, I gotta have Christopher Walken in my movie, right? I don't know that for sure. I'm speculating because I do know what a fondness Quentin Tarantino had for King of New York, and by extension, probably Christopher Walken. And again, maybe if I probably will never ever meet Quentin Tarantino nor Christopher Walken. They probably wouldn't be bothered with a guy like me. But I do respect those two gentlemen so much for their craft. So shout out to all my great actors out there. I kind of went on a soapbox, kind of another tangent here. Didn't mean it. It's just that when I see Ian's a fellow lover of movies. He got me rewatching Public Enemies. So if you haven't seen Public Enemies, definitely give it a watch. It was a recommendation by my faithful moderator here, Ian Reed in London, and it's great. I mean, it's an investment. Let's just be honest. Like, you're gonna have to probably watch it. Maybe if you don't have 5.5 hours to rewatch it in one sitting, you probably have to watch it in short bursts. But Again, I don't think I would call Public Enemies Johnny Depp's finest film, right? Obviously, Christian Bale was in there as well. They're kind of like again, another kind of a good guy, bad guy kind of thing. But really good. Like that, it's kind of that shot in that way. Very similar to Road to Perdition, right? So if you want to see another great movie and you happen to see it, be a fan of Tom Hanks, you like gangster movies, you like beautifully shot movies, and you like those hats, right? Road to Perdition is a great movie. So Ian, I don't know if you've seen Road to Perdition. I wholeheartedly recommend it. It is a fantastic movie. It has Paul Newman. There also has the gentleman Daniel Craig, right? You might know him as James Bond, but before he was James Bond, Daniel Craig had a role in Road to Perdition. So you got three great actors, at least three that I can rattle off the top of my head right there. And I'm sure there might have been others, but really great movie. Just it very up there with A Bronx Tale in that even if you don't like gangster movies, you might appreciate this, right? It's a very good coming of age movie and a father and son duo. I wholeheartedly recommend it. Ian, have you seen Road to Perdition? Now I'm curious because I always wonder, like, right? Has everybody seen the movies? Sometimes I assume that everybody's seen it, but you know what? Like I said, I watch a lot of movies, right? I've probably forgotten so many movies that and like when it comes to my mind, I'll just blurt it out, right? Regardless of what I'm talking about. Ian says yes, my man, right? Obviously, like Ian, I mean, I don't know if you love it as much as I do, but if that story and that Jude Law, right? Jude Law, talk about hats, right? So obviously, Tom Hanks was rocking the high crown fedora, right? Because this is kind of Prohibition era. I said before, Chicago. It wasn't Chicago. It was a place called Rock Island, right? Which is very iconic. Yeah, Shutter Island has great hats. Yeah, yeah. Uh, 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 Rock Island is the setting, right? The character managed to find his way back into Chicago, right? I won't spoil it for you guys because I don't want to be one of those channels and one of those guys that just tells you everything. But you're gonna love that. You're gonna love. We talked about that iconic scene when Pacino and De Niro sit down. There's another iconic scene, at least iconic for me, when Jude Law goes into and meets up with Tom Hanks's character, and they have an exchange. I'll just leave it there. Watch the movie. Ian has seen it, so I won't spoil it. But you might thank me later, right? So we will have a segment for that. I tell you, a lovely green one, for example. Yes, yes. Just you gotta love it, right? You gotta love a movie that puts together iconic hats, right? Puts together some iconic actors, and it actually gives you a storyline, right? Sometimes I will play a little bit like I'm a little bit fast and loose, right? It doesn't have to be a great movie or in a spell, right? Like Robin and the Seven Hoods. I love that movie. It has great music, but I wouldn't call that a really great movie, right? Like in terms of like, it's not going to really tug at your heartstrings and be like, oh my gosh, that changed my life. But it's like it's eye candy, it's ear candy, and it has the Rat Pack, right? Well, how can you go wrong with the Rat Pack? You got Dino, Old Blue Eyes, and Sammy Davis Jr. there, and all wearing iconic suits and iconic hats. And then you got Peter Falk and Edward G. Robinson, right? Shout out to Edward G. Robinson, another underappreciated guy. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, and he's very well much appreciated. But Edward G. Robinson is iconic. So shout out to Edward G. Robinson. Inception too, yes. That's another one I haven't seen in a long time. You know what? Maybe that's what I'm going to do. Ian is going to be my new movie recommendation expert because so far Ian's not led me astray. And also music, right? Ian is also a musician. He plays neo folk music. We got other musicians. We got Cold Bones Lullabies. Both kind of. I want to say I don't know. Again, Ian, I don't know how neo folk differs from like the type of music that Cold Bones Lullabies does. I will try to check out some of your music. Actually, I'm gonna find out. Excuse me, I'm like battling a little bit of acid reflux. But Yeah, Cold Bones Lullabies is somebody that that sounds very much like Bob Dylan to me, and I don't know how it contrasts with neo folk. But Ian, if your band has music that I can go and download and support you in any way, let me know. I will do that. I just want to listen to that music that you produce. And if there's no way for me to like uh, support you and download your music, then maybe you can send me something, right? We're on the same messenger chat. I just want to get some sample of your music and appreciate that, because now that I know Ian the man, Ian the moderator, Ian the hat guy, I want to get to know Ian the musician, right? It's just one of those things where I'm like, call me crazy. I'm just one of those guys, right? I feel like I will make, like, everybody's busy. I will make the time out to listen to some of your music, Ian. And like I said, maybe if I'm in your neck of the woods, maybe I will see you live, and buy and finally make good on that pint that I promised. But shout out to Ian for being a great member here. I'm just solidifies why I made him a moderator. Also to Morgan. Morgan's been traveling, so Morgan hasn't been able to join us. But Morgan did share a shot of her Shark Gill ribbon. That, remember we were talking about that. She shared that in our group chat on Facebook, and it's beautiful, Morgan. Morgan, if you watch this later on, or if you join us, at some point, that's beautiful. I said it, I replied it in the chat, but oh my gosh, that was gorgeous. Hopefully, Morgan, that was everything, that it turned out just as well as you hoped. But beautiful, beautiful hat, beautiful ribbon, and I gotta love it, right? It makes my day when I see that. Like I said, um, Ian says prophecy are their download people, but YouTube is another source. Okay, that sounds good. Uh, the lady has great taste. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Ian, like I said, you don't need to know anything else about Morgan, but just see some of her hats, and you kind of know she's got great taste, right? And then it's evolving, right? Morgan even came on here and said, "I don't have a Hamburg, Luke, but now that I saw your Hamburg, now I'm going to look into getting a Hamburg." And Morgan, I think you look great in a Hamburg. You know what? It's just not a hat that you see a lot of women wearing. I mentioned this before, how we want to attract, besides young people into this hat hobby, we also want to bring in more women into this hobby. Again, I know that there's plenty of hat ladies out there, but they tend to gravitate to the more of the lady, the female oriented hats, right? And I talked about this before. If you're not sure whether a hat was made for originally for a male or a female, the tradition goes that if the bow, right, so like the decorative part of the ribbon is on the on the left side. Sorry, I pointed the wrong way. If it's on the left side, it is for a male wearer. If it's on the right side, it's for a female wearer. And again, we're living in 2025. We don't need to like stick to those norms, right? I wear a watch on my right hand. Traditionally, it would be worn on the left hand, but well, I have a good reason for wearing it on my right hand, and I'll share that one day. But again, I wear on my right side. Who cares? Rules, like I mentioned when we had Paul here, you learn the rules, right? And then you strategically break the rules, right? And somebody has, it brings it up and say, hey, you're wearing a female's hat, Luke, or Luke, you're wearing your watch on the wrong wrist, Luke. I'm like, well, I will tell you why I do that, and then hopefully you'll forgive me for it, or if you don't, then at least you let me just go on and we can agree to disagree, right? But Ian says, yeah, she is the perfect ambassador. Yes, she is. But she's a member of Gen Z. I believe Morgan is African American. I don't know her ancestry besides that. Um, so and she's a New Yorker, right? Like she comes from like a very rich hat history already. And I haven't really asked Morgan about like her a lot more about her hat journey than just the basics, right? So Morgan started off with a Stetson Revenger, a Western style cowboy hat, and eventually found her way, I know, to KTG hats. because that's how I got to know her, and then just started really embracing the high crown style from the nostalgia. I believe Kevin has a Morgan model, right? So you can find a KTG Morgan model that is dedicated to Morgan, and we'll see. Maybe we'll get a KTG Luke if I play my cards right with Kevin, right? And then you guys can see and appreciate a KTG Luke. If I had to pick one model that Kevin has that seems to be like similar to my style, right? I talked about like the fedora, the stingy brim fedora with the center. It doesn't have to be a center bash. It could be a teardrop, but with maybe the two front pinches and then the brim binding. That it would be the Sal, right? Shout out to Sal. I believe the Sal is named by a gentleman on Facebook that goes by Sal and Trisha. And Sal, without knowing him better, I actually sent Sal. If you ever watched this, I sent you a friend request. You haven't accepted me yet. Hopefully you will. You know me, and I know you. But shout out to Sal. And Sal is very much I believe Sal is a Chicano, right? So shout out to my fellow Chicano Sals. He rocks the kind of the look, right? We call it. I mentioned it here before. It's called El Mero Mero, and it really is kind of a shout out to the older gentleman, right? When you are a Chicano and you want to pay your respect to older gentlemen that are also Chicano, right? They call them OGs, original gangsters. They'll call them El Mero Mero. And El Mero Meros will usually rock a certain style. My folks from California and my folks from probably Texas and maybe New Mexico and Arizona, but particularly California. Shout out to all my Chicanos in California and worldwide, especially those that embrace the El Mero Mero style in that OG style. Very iconic, very well known. Obviously, it's known for having other connotations. I won't get into that because I don't glamorize that life. Not part of that life, and I don't glamorize that life. Just like my look right now is very synonymous, right? I have like kind of this bowling type shirt, right? It's a synonymous like a Tony Soprano style, and I do love that style. But I don't, like I said, I'm not trying to glamorize being a gangster. It's not what I am. Ian says, how cool is having a hat model dedicated to you? Right? Isn't that right? Yeah, I have like I said, once I get Kevin on here, Kevin said he's going to invite me onto his show. I will work out those details with Kevin. Again, I don't usually ask for stuff, right? I'm not somebody that will like try to just ask for something like that. If it's offered to me, then that's great. And I just not something, just one of the things that it's just my way of carrying myself. I try not to go and make requests. Sometimes, like I said, I won't ask for permission, right? I may not ask for permission to post in your forum or in your Facebook group. But if you tell me to stop and you decide that hey, stop doing that, then I'll stop because I'm a respectful person. But just sometimes I'm just like, all right, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And that's just the way I carry. And Ian says, I am learning Hispanic mysteries. Yes, you are. Ian, if you want, like I said, if anything that I feel like you already do this, but I'm going to just repeat myself and open that out to anybody else, right? If Luke says something and you're not sure about it, then Google it, right? Google it or do a Facebook search. And then you will know it, right? There's really great movies out there that will highlight the El Mero Mero style. And I learned it just the same way you learn it, right? I didn't grow up in California. I've been to California, but I haven't really spent time in that culture. I just happen to love culture. I love cultures and I love subcultures, right? And the Chicano subculture is, well, it's iconic, right? It's something that is really integrated within the fabric of American culture, right? It's like the best of both worlds. It's a shout out to the Mexican American culture, and they are always very, very respectful. Well, one, they're very respectful people. I think that's why I relate a lot to the Mexican Americans, right? I feel like as a Puerto Rican American, we have so many similarities. And besides being rivals in boxing, right? Shout out to all my Mexican American boxers and my Puerto Rican boxers. There is a rivalry there, but it's always been a very respectful one. And some really great battles, right? You had Oscar De La Hoya, Julio Cesar Chavez, and now Canelo Alvarez, who has a fight coming up next in a couple weeks, I think. And then you had great Puerto Rican greats, right? I'm going to go with Felix Tito Trinidad, and you also have Miguel Angel Cotto, as well as Hector Macho Camacho, who was not from Puerto Rico, but he was Puerto Rican American. He might have been born in the island, but he is from Spanish Harlem, and he tragically passed away in Puerto Rico, and just apparently he got into some bad business, and it looked like something was fishy about the way Hector Macho Camacho was ultimately met his demise. But you know what, like I said, that's why I don't promote that life. There's no longevity in negativity, right? Big Pun said that there's no longevity living in negativity, and I feel like that's wise words, right? Ian said, I just read a book, Las 21 Divisiones. Everything interests me. Wow, I'm not familiar with that book, Ian. I might have to pick that up. Can you, again, without doing spoilers, what is that about? I'm really interested. Again, I'm not very well read. I actually shared one book that I did read when Rick P. Over in the Fedora Lounge lost his faithful companion, Mr. Moose. And I pulled that quote because I read that book and I'm really touched by that book, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. Ian shared that book, Tuesdays with Maury, is a film, and I'm going to get that film again because I don't know if I ever saw it, to be honest. I just know the book. But Jack Lemmon, I really love Jack Lemmon. There's very few films or very things that Jack Lemmon's done that I haven't loved. So I will check that out. Oh, it's Dominican Republic version of Voodoo. Okay. All right. I am interested. I will at least find out a little bit more about that. Sometimes I don't always read a book, but somebody will tell me about a book, but I'll research it, right? I am a researcher by trade. It's what I do for a living. It's what I've done basically since I became a professional back in, over 20 years ago. So yeah, I've been a researcher by trade for over 20 years. I did market research and I do survey research. So I'm very much a market research, survey research. That's my craft. And besides that, I studied organizational behavior. So I kind of, I'm really always fascinated by that. But cultures is, I think Ian and I just found out how similar, it's another drop in how similar Ian and I. He's basically, now I'm basically going to call him my brother from another mother, Ian Reed, dropping jewels. Ian, thank you so much for sharing what you're reading and what your passions are. That's what I want to create here. We're not just our hats, right? We are a collection of various different passions, various different backgrounds, and we can appreciate each other even if we're not right? Obviously, Ian and I probably appreciate each other because we're very similar, but we can also celebrate our differences, right? Ian. Well, you know what? I didn't, hopefully you're not super blushing right now, but I'm flattered that you're flattered, so that's just the way it is, right? I think we're very much of the same ilk. And it's just fascinating, right? It's kind of like you can have, I have lots of brothers. I have one sister, and wow, I'm just gonna say one sister, 8 brothers. A big family. We're not all blood related, right? Because my mom had a couple marriages before she met my dad. My dad was married once, so I have a lot of half brothers. I have one full brother, right, that I grew up with, but they're all my brothers, regardless of whether we shared the same mom and dad. They're all my brothers, and it's just amazing to see the similarities, right? We all kind of share some kind of blood tie, but just to see the similarities and also the differences, right? I mentioned my brother Eli. We share the same dad, not the same mom, but he is very much like a prototype of if you picked out a member of my family that was the most like my dad, and I'm gonna guess was most like my granddad, it would be Eli. And Eli is he's a retired postal worker. He's also done 2 tours in the United States Army. So Eli has accomplished a lot in his life. And he's still so young and so active, right? He rides a motorcycle now. He has a girlfriend who I haven't met yet, but Eli. But besides Eli, the man, Eli and his son Ethan, my nephew Ethan is one of my favorite people, right? He's not just my favorite nephew. I don't have a favorite nephew, you know. I don't want to get all my nephews here. I got a lot of nephews and nieces out there. I don't play favorites, right? I love you guys all the same. Uh, but there's something about Ethan, right? And I know Eli knows what I'm talking about. That's an old soul, right? So when I go and I have another nephew, Jonathan. Maybe Jonathan, I don't know if Jonathan even knows that I have a channel. This I'll share it with Jonathan. He's on Instagram, and you know, Jonathan is my nephew from my son Bob, from my brother Bobby. He's the youngest in that half brother, that series of brothers that I had from New Jersey. You know, we don't share the same mom, but we share the same dad. And they were from my dad's first marriage. And Bobby, son Jonathan, lives in Arizona now, and he's also kind of an old soul. I love that kid. And then Eli, who's one of the older brothers from that lineage. You know, his son Ethan is also like a really sweet kid, just a sweet, sweet kid. You know, so shout out to my family. You guys probably don't even know I have a YouTube channel, but you will. You know, it's just I got to get established first, right? I mentioned that a lot of you guys now are hitting the ground floor here with this channel. I have no idea how big this channel will get. It's about 38 subscribers now. I'm trying to hit 50, so help me out. So if you see this right here, and you want to help me out, or if you know somebody that it might be interested, share this, right? So, you know, help me reach 50 subscribers if you can, if you want to. I'm not obligating. And I'll put this message. If you know somebody that would love this conversation, right? Maybe they don't care about hats. They just care about good conversation. Maybe they love movies. Maybe they love books, right? Share the channel, right? Maybe let them decide whether Good Luke's is a channel they want to rock with. And if they don't, that's fine. I will always wish you well in your in what you want, right? We are very busy people, right? We're bombarded by a lot of stimulus, right? And I'm just another thing in your life that you have to either decide whether I'm worth the time or not. And I'm flattered that some people decide, like Ian. Ian's here regularly, and I'm flattered that Ian mentioned that he was flattered. I'm flattered that Ian comes here and you know, he knows that he's not obligated to. Nobody's obligated to come here and watch me, you know, sit here and rant for an hour plus. But if you do, I hope you get something out of it, right? You know, I don't pretend to know basically anything, to be honest. Like I said, I'm just that kind of person. And all I am is just a guy that loves hats. I fashion myself a good man. I'm only been on this earth just short of 50 years. But I learned a few things, right? And if I could teach somebody with this channel, I'll do that. I'm not somebody that, you know, I can get preachy sometimes, so you guys will have to forgive me when I do that. It's just the old man in me. It's the dad in me, right? So my son out there, you know, if you're out there, Chris, and you watch this, you know, because you've seen me. I've always been a dad, even probably before I was a dad, right? You know, I just always been one of those kids. I did that with my younger brother. You know, I think a lot of people saw me as an old soul. I was just a fat kid that loved to eat, and was probably a little bit more observant, and a little bit, you know, a little bit older than that I let on. And I actually looked older. Maybe that's what it was. You know, I don't know what it was. But you know, I mentioned this before. I had this face probably since I was 18, probably younger. But I do remember around 18, just getting a lot of folks to be like, "Well, you know, what do you do for a living?" You know, and I'm like, "Well, I don't do anything. I just like I'm in high school." I do high school, and they're like, "What? I thought you were like 30 or 40." And then I'm like, "Oh man!" So that's like a gift and a curse, right? Because I do revere and respect older people, but you always kind of have it in the back of your mind, like, why do I look 40 at 18? You know, and now like I'm well past 40. Right? I'm closer to 50 than I am 40, and hopefully, you know, that meant I just I peaked early, and now I look hopefully my age. I don't know. Maybe now that means I look 80. Hopefully I don't look like an 80-year-old. I don't feel like an 80-year-old, but I don't have a problem. Like I said, one of my good family members is 97 years old. Shout out to Uncle Dom. Uncle Dom is 97 years old, and we visited him every time we go to New Jersey because he's in a home, but he's actually in like when this is when I had a very very bad perception of nursing homes. I'm going to be honest. I'll reveal that I had a bad perception of nursing homes until I saw the nursing home that Uncle Dom is at, and he is just happy, and maybe it's just because Uncle Dom is a happy person, but he always is thankful and appreciative of the folks that help him out. So shout out to all the folks that help out Uncle Dom and make his stay that more pleasant. He is just happy. And then every time, so this is what I'll reveal about Uncle Dom. Uncle Dom is 97 and has a thing for Hershey's bars, right? So if you know those chocolate bars, the original Hershey bar. So what we do is at first, when we visited Uncle Dom, we gave him a bag of them. Like I brought a bag of Hershey bars. And then unfortunately, Ian says, you ain't a nipper, but certainly a young man. Thank you. I feel young, right? You're usually as young as you feel, I think, right? Age is nothing but a number. We talked about a lot of folks, Uncle Dom included, that and if, Ian, I have to, without knowing you, I feel like you're also, I've seen your photos, I've seen you travel, and you're very much also somebody that is, an example, a great example of how, you want to be. So shout out to Ian. Really great to know you. So essentially, Uncle Dom got a bag of Hershey treats, and he was happy, right? So I just figured that if I gave Uncle Dom a bunch of Hershey bars, he could use it like money, right? So he might have some buddies in his nursing home, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you this Hershey bar, but just remember, you owe me. You owe me." So right, he could use it as currency. But I had no idea that Uncle Dom is just like eating all these Hershey bars. So his kids, cousin Phil and cousin Mary, told me like, "Hey, I love it, but just one bar. Could just bring Uncle Dom one bar. It's just that he's not supposed to be eating so many Hershey bars." So I'm like, you know what? I didn't know, but afterwards I got it. Afterwards I kind of like, yeah, of course. So now Uncle Dom only gets one Hershey bar. I get him a big one though, a big Hershey bar, and then we bring it to him. And Uncle Dom used to sell insurance. That was his career. He actually put his son through medical school by selling insurance. And then every time we go, he's like, "You guys are our best customers. You're my best customers." And I'm like, "Wow," you know what I mean? Uncle Dom is still the salesman, right? He's like, "You know what? You guys are my best customers." You know what? I could have just imagined Uncle Dom. He always makes mention about my hats, right? So the last time I visited Uncle Dom, I wore my Stetson bowler from the 1930s. And Uncle Dom told me, "Hey, Luke, how many payments you got left on that hat?" And then we both laughed. I gave him a hug. Uncle Dom he still got it, right? He's got a little bit of dementia, but when he's got that social skill, right? He probably used it really well to kill it in the insurance industry. And well, there you go, Uncle Dom, 97, still kicking. Shout out to Uncle Dom. I don't know if Uncle Dom, I don't think anybody knows about my YouTube channel in the family. But Uncle Dom, if I told him, maybe he'll start watching me. So shout out to Uncle Dom. You're who I want to be when I grow up. Because you carry yourself with grace and you're still a sharp cookie. We will all be take a page out of Uncle Dom's book. He's probably older. I could probably safely say he's older than just about anybody that watches this channel. He's 97. Shout out to Uncle Dom, still doing it and still living his best life. That's like I said, you can't beat that. Again, I went off on a tangent. Apologize, but back to the topic at hand. The hat of the day is this Resistol. Resistol is a brand that, man, like I knew, like I said, in terms of like when I saw this hat, it was a Resistol that was a stingy brim. So I'm like, you know what? I'm getting this hat, right? Like we talk about the hooks, what the hook was. And Resistol, like if Resistor is one of those brands that's iconic. I'll make this the portion of the show when I will try to share my screen, but no promises. Like I said, I had some technical difficulties yesterday. It might happen again. It looks like it is. So I'm just gonna keep doing. I actually shared with StreamYard the issues that I've been having with sharing my screen. Again, I have no idea. I have no real data to support that this is a StreamYard problem. It could very well be a problem with my computer. It could be user error. But I just felt like I felt obligated to at least bring it up to StreamYard's attention, just in case somebody else had the same issue. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because eventually I will get this to work. I just need to kind of keep plugging away. It's just the way it works, when it comes down to a technology. There could be, what my hope is that StreamYard sees my inquiry, and they'll say, oh, okay, well, you're just doing it wrong, sir. You just basically, there, I got it, right? I believe I got it. Well, no, now I got it. Now I got it. There, see? Just goes to show you that about persistence. Ian says, do you call male family friends who are older uncle? People did that here when I was younger, but it is rare now, except with people whose origins is in India. No, actually, okay, I'm gonna say it depends, right? That's a great question, Ian. It depends. There's so Uncle Dom. I mentioned Uncle Dom, who's 97, right? And Uncle Dom has two children that are there. I'm gonna just say they're in their 70s, for lack of a better, right? So he has technically cousin Phil and technically cousin Mary, right? Cousin Phil is a physician, now a retired physician. Him and his wife are retired physicians, and cousin Mary is a retired dispatcher in New Jersey, right? She did dispatching for fire and actually for police. I think both fire and police. I don't think you're able to just dispatch for just police, but she worked with a lot of police officers and a lot of firefighters, I believe, in New Jersey, where she lives. And because they're so much like they are at least 20 years older, sometimes what happens is I will call, especially Phil, even though he's technically cousin Phil, we will refer to him as Uncle Phil sometimes, because, well, Uncle Phil is, besides being a really smart, very nice individual, very well respected, right? A physician. We know about physicians and how much esteem they hold in society. So out of respect, sometimes I will just kind of refer to him as Uncle Phil. But even though he's technically cousin Phil, that's kind of where I would leave it at. I don't think with anybody else I have that situation. So yes, there's also a rapper, right, called Luke Campbell. He's an iconic rapper from Miami. And what happened was he started off as making very raunchy, not safe for work type music, right? Usually with scantily clad women. And then eventually he grew from being Luke Campbell to becoming Uncle Luke, right? Because he's not a lot older, right? He's older than me. He's a pioneer, and out of respect, people will refer to him as Uncle Luke, and he'll refer to himself as Uncle Luke, right? And I just relate to that because I feel like a lot of people do call me. Sometimes I get called Uncle Luke. Obviously, by my nieces and nephew, they'll call me Uncle Luke, but that's because that's my title. Yeah. Very fascinating questions. Ian says, my neighbors as a boy always called themselves husband and wife. Wow. So they just refer to them as husband and wife. Wow, that's interesting. I've not experienced that, Ian. That's very interesting. I wonder why, right? The researcher in me is like, okay, right? I come from the functionalist school of psychology, right? So if you want to like research the school of psychology that Luke happens to ascribe to, it's because of I'm an industrial organizational psychologist by training. We are rooted in functionalism, right? So the whole basis of functionalism is that behavior exists to the extent that it's able to fulfill a function, right? So maybe what I'm like when I go as a functionalist in school of psychologists as a functionalist, I would say, why did your neighbors refer to them as quote unquote husband and quote unquote wife, right? Instead of by their names or by anything else. What function did that serve for them? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was a nod. It served as solidifying to everybody else that they are a pair, right? Again, I'm speculating. I don't know your neighbors. You know them better than I did. But maybe they were so respectful of their marriage, right? We do know that something that marriage was a lot more sacred back in the day than there is right now. 60% probably or more of marriages end divorce, right? Back in the day, it was shameful not to be divorced. Not that it should be stigmatized. I am a big believer in destigmatizing a lot of things that used to be taboo, right? Like fat shaming. Obviously, we don't want to continue fat shaming people, right? I grew up with a lot of fat shaming. I experienced it. It's basically another form of bullying. So we don't want to do that. But maybe what they did was, Ian says, tradition. I guess they would not know why. Yeah, a lot of people don't know why they do the things they do. That's one of the things about like the idea and psychology of the subconscious, right? Not that I'm a Freudian psychologist or anything, but I do know about and familiar with Freud's work and about the subconscious and the things that we do unconsciously beyond our knowing. And I'm fascinated by that because a lot of times I will self-reflect on my walks, right? And usually I will I'll self-reflect and I'll do what's called metacognition, right? Thinking about my own thinking. And then I'll figure out why do I do what I do? What function does it serve, right? Only because, like I said, I fashion myself a good functionalist, and I will say, hey, why do I do that? And I've shared some of that stuff. I won't bore you. This is not a psych channel. Again, this is just another aspect of good Luke's, right? Of Luke, the man, a researcher, a psychologist by training, and also a watch, kind of a watch collector and watch nerd, and also very much a hat nerd, and just, try to be a good dude and learn a little bit about myself, right? Sometimes interacting with other people teaches you a lot more about yourself than it does about other people, right? Because other people are very much a mirror, right? When you communicate with them, when you see their body language, they are very much a mirror of yourself. You can learn a lot of yourself by interacting with your fellow man. So that's why I do it. That's another benefit, right? In terms of like me opening this up and not becoming just me talking to you guys in, one way. I make this a two-way interaction because I really get a lot more from it. And hopefully you guys do too. It's like I said, it's just my goal. Like I said, I'm just trying to make a YouTube version of Cheers here, where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. Anyway, shout out to Cheers. So yeah, just showing a little shot here of this Resistol fedora. That way you guys can kind of, just see the hat. Again, it's a stingy brim hat. I wore a Stetson Downs yesterday. So you guys can kind of see that just the front profile of the photo. You can see that nice thick ribbon, right? You guys know that I'm a big fan of the stingy brim. I'm a big fan of the thick ribbon. I'm also a big fan of like a center bash as well as this lining, right? We talked about that with Paul, and you've seen some of my other hats here, kind of like this one right here. You've seen this one right here has the elaborate, the stingy brim. This is my champ, my stingy brim champ with a nice decorative feather, and it has kind of like that trim that I call it brim trim, It's actually fun to say. It has that brim trim. Like I said, in my hat journey, I've just come to know that Luke happens to love brim trim, right? And appreciate the various thickness of the brim trims out there, as well as the ribbons. So this one, obviously, you can tell why I at least in the beginning, I got this hat because, well, it seemed to fit my. This was seemed to be a Luke hat. I just need to make it my Luke hat, so I just had to go make it mine. You can see the side profile is very, very kind of plain, but it does have that nice thick ribbon. I just thought I saw this hat. I'm like, okay, this is a classy hat. Uh, um, so that was one of the hooks. A classy stingy brim with the brim trim in a nice thick ribbon. Love it. And in black, right? Who doesn't like? Everybody owns a black hat, I think, right? It just seems it's one of those three core colors, right? That we hat nerds really gravitate towards, right? Even if we're very conservative, especially if we're very conservative, we won't go with these loud hats. I'm not a very conservative person, but we do know that a lot of folks are hat folks, and they will stick to like black, brown, and gray. Those are like the three colors, and maybe green, right? If they go out and choose a hat, maybe they'll go and they'll choose a green hat, only because green seems to be one of those colors that, depending on the shade of green, it's very cultural. Like Ian shared his time in Germany. We talked about the Germanic influence on hatting. Hopefully I get my guy, Steve Heck here, who's an expert in all things German and Austrian hats. He was here one time. Hopefully I'll get him here. Ian says, that's a lovely hat. Make and no mistake. Hey, thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. I think so. Again, it's very much a Luke style hat. So that was one of the hooks. The other hook was the brand, right? So we talked about Resistol. I've mentioned that brand. When I saw that this was a Resistol hat in my size, I was like, okay, this is a more modern hat, right? So you guys, if you've been following this channel, you guys know that I'm a big nerd when it comes to dating some of these hats, right? And I mean dating as in how old are they? Not like I take them out for dinner, right? I mean, I do take them out for dinner, but it's not like, hey, baby, what's your phone number, right? It's like that's not that kind of dating. I'm not gonna go and buy a steak for my hat. If I buy a steak, it's gonna be for me. Sorry, Resistol, you're not getting a steak. Like hopefully you will forgive me. I just love food way too much, and I'm fasting, and now I got steak on my mind. I got food on my mind. But thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. So yeah, just to kind of show you some shots of the hat. Again, somebody probably, or so before I even saw it, somebody saw this hat and like, I hate stingy brims, and I hate the modern hats, right? And they were like, nope. But luckily, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? I saw this hat and it was like, wow, this is gorgeous. And I'm gonna make it mine. So that's what I did. I hit the buy button, and then the hat came in the mail, and I was happy as a clam with my Resistol. It was just something that was missing from my hat collection. I knew about how well regarded Resistol was, and I know a lot of folks were like, "All right, Resistol did, yeah, their logo is fabulous." Yeah, I agree. Very, very regal. That's the one thing about logos, is that they're very regal. They usually have a shield of some sort. And then what I'll do is I'll actually share a more of a dedicated shot to the logo here. Hopefully this comes across okay. And it says here, the Byer-Rolnick product, right? And we'll talk about Byer-Rolnick, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm just going to call it Byer-Rolnick. So if you want to know more about the history of Resistol, then you're in the right place, because I'm going to talk about some of that history and break it down for you like I usually do, right? I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't do that, because again, that's one of the reasons why I admire like folks like Paul, because he has a heart of a teacher. And Ian, you also do have a heart of a teacher. You're not afraid to share what you know and your opinions, right? Facts and opinions, right? And you're also very open, right? You got to love that, right? In psychology, there's a concept called openness to new experiences. It's part of the big 5 personality factors, right? There's conscientiousness, agreeableness, openness, neuroticism. We talked about neuroticism before, openness to new experiences, and extroversion, right? So you can see them, they're called canoe, right? You can also use the acronym OCEAN, right? So OCEAN, for the big five factors: openness to new experiences, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, right? So shout out to my big five. I actually have a very I have a work-related tie to the big five personality factors. I just happened to do an internship in Baltimore. Remember, I talked about my internship in Baltimore and why I came to love Baltimore so much, Baltimore, Maryland. And that's because I worked, besides the fact that I loved Baltimore during that internship and I grew to love the city. I happened to work, I did that internship working with like two of the major researchers that really were the pioneers of the big five personality factors. So, it's what got me into graduate school. I'm pretty convinced that internship got me into graduate school, and I owe a lot of my career and probably my hat collection. Right, I would have never gotten that job, that big first job, if I didn't go to graduate school, and I would have never gone to graduate school without Paul T. Costa and Robert McRae. I have no idea if you guys will ever see this channel, but shout out to you guys. You guys were instrumental in my career journey, and which was also instrumental in my life journey, which was also instrumental in my hat journey. It's not lost on me. So shout out to Costa and McRae if you're out there. Paul says the fleur de lis in the logo makes me think there is a French angle to Resistol. Yeah, very, very, very interesting observation, Ian. I did not even know that, but now you got me curious. Let's see. When I get to like the Chat GPT, we'll see if there's any kind of French connection here. No pun intended, right? That wasn't like a tie to the movie French Connection, but I do love that movie. Check out French Connection with Gene Hackman if you're a hat nerd and you love pork pie hats, and if you're a Gene Hackman lover. Gene Hackman was we lost him just recently. Great iconic role for Gene Hackman amongst all these many movies. Wow. If I had to pick one Gene Hackman movie, The Quick and the Dead, right? What a great modern gunslinging movie. The Quick and the Dead. Had Gene Hackman, Sharon Stone, what's his name? Russell Crowe, Leonardo DiCaprio, and a whole bunch of other actors that I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But just a star-studded cast in The Quick and the Dead. So if you like those kind of like a modern twist on the old Western, I check out The Quick and the Dead. Gene Hackman killed it in that movie. Well, literally, as Little Bill, the town sheriff. Man, what an iconic role. Actually might have been the last time, like Gene Hackman at some point decided that he was going to stop making violent movies. And I believe Quick and the Dead was his one of the movies that made him stop making violent movies. Now I might be mixing that up with another great modern Western movie, which was The Unforgiven, that he did with Clint Eastwood. Sometimes movies start blending in, but they're both, doesn't matter. They're both great movies, right? So check out The Quick and the Dead and check out The Unforgiven. Both great movies. I believe Unforgiven was with Clint Eastwood, who I also love, right? Who doesn't love Clint Eastwood? Man, Gran Torino. It's not a hat movie, but if you want to watch one Clint Eastwood movie, I would probably put at least the modern ones that he's done and directed. I would put up there Gran Torino as well as $1 Million Baby with Hilary Swank. Hilary Swank, Clint Eastwood, as well as Morgan Freeman. Wow. I'm geeking out on movies. Sorry, guys. But Ian got me thinking about French, which made me think about French Connection. And then that got me on the movie tangent. So sorry about that. I do that stuff. So just to show you again, the sweatband here. This is a more modern Resistol Again, you could tell by the styling and all that stuff. This is probably from the 50s and 60s, probably the 60s. And I'll show you why I say that a little bit later on. But you can see, like I said, like the budding vintage hat nerd. You guys know when you start seeing like that black sweatband and maybe start seeing that plastic tip liner, that automatically your brain should start thinking 50s and 60s. And this is probably more like 60s, to be honest. But you can see here it says Resistol Self-Conforming Melorol. And again, as far as I know, that has to do with the sweatband. Apparently, the sweatband, Resistol got this idea of marketing, this idea of Melorol. There is a discussion on the Fedora Lounge about what Melorol really was and what it is. Apparently, I don't know. I couldn't tell you whether it's a bunch of hooey, like marketing speak. We do know that a lot of hat manufacturers, in order to distinguish themselves, started patenting things that had no utility, as opposed to things that we knew had utility, like the Kavanaugh Edge, right? That we talked about before. That's something that had utility, and it was a verifiable thing that you could see and feel and touch, and knew that was a thing. But as far as I know, I don't know what makes Melorol any better or different than a non-Melorol sweatband. So if you know that answer, or you can find that answer, you can either share it out on the screen here or tell me in a future hat chat. Just say, hey, Luke, I actually looked up that Melorol thing you showed me, and this is the actual answer. Again, I'm here to learn. I'm here not just to kind of teach, right? I everything here is based off of me learning, right? So I'm here not when I go here and I try to show you something, it's teaching you guys, but it's because I learn better when I teach something, right? So I'll research it in the morning, and then I'll come here at 11 a.m. Eastern, and either I'll learn it, or I'll relearn it in the morning and then teach you guys here. But I don't mean it to be a one-way thing. I'm here to learn, and that's the way I learn. I learn best when I teach something, right? I've taught classes before to university students, and usually I would set up a lesson plan by me either reteaching myself or teaching or learning for the first time what material I have to cover, and then I'll be prepared for my class. I actually haven't done that in many years. I actually have to get back into that. I think it's really useful, and I feel like now 50-year-old Luke is in a better position to teach a class than 30-year-old Luke when I actually done it before. So yeah, hopefully students appreciate it, and then maybe I'll make a couple extra bucks that I can buy some hats with. All right. So yeah, no shame in having a side gig, right? Like I said, I have the ability to choose what I do on my time. And if I can be able to get paid for it, even better. It's like nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with money. Okay. If there's one thing you get from this channel is like that old adage that money is the root of all evil. I think that's a bunch of hooey, to be honest. Again, that's just my opinion. I'm not putting out as fact. If you happen to wholeheartedly believe that money is the root of all evil, then go forth. Right? You do you. I'll do me. I don't believe money is the root of all evil. We learned from yesterday with John B. Stetson, who had a lot of money. He sold a lot of hats, made a lot of money, and did a lot of good with that money. So shout out to John B. Stetson and all the good that he did within his company and also outside of his greater community, in his adoptive home of DeLand, Florida. And so much so that university that he supported decided to change their name from DeLand Academy or DeLand University to Stetson. And Stetson University still exists, right, to this day. And the Stetson Mansion still exists in Florida to this day. And they're actually open now for visitors. So if you find your way to DeLand, Florida, and you're a hat nerd, go take a trip over to, if you do it before I do, then go take a trip to DeLand and visit the Stetson University and visit the Stetson Museum, or whatever it happens to be called. I might be misremembering it, but apparently it's open to visitors at certain hours. Obviously, look up the hours before you go because it's a privately owned estate. But go and pay your respects to John B. Stetson because I think he's worthy of it. He's, again, part of my Mount Rushmore of hats in U.S. hat making, right? You got Again, if you want to keep it to 4, I'm going to go with Zadok Benedict over, because he was the original, right? Even though he didn't have a brand, I believe I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep calling him Zadok Benedict until somebody corrects me, because I could be butchering that. But he was the one that initially came out with, he was the first recognized hatter in the U.S. In 1780. Then you had Ezra Mallory Sr., who started Mallory Hats, I believe, in 1823. And then you had John B. Stetson, right? Born in New Jersey, and but started the Stetson Hat Company based out of Philadelphia in 1865, right around the Civil War era. And then you had John Kavanaugh, right? John Kavanaugh was the man behind the conglomerate Hat Corporation of America, and he came behind all those, but was no less important and recognized the importance of a quality brand. So shout out to those 4 gentlemen. As far as I know, if you ask Luke right now who's in his Mount Rushmore of U.S. hat making, those 4 gentlemen would be it. And then if you gave me some more latitude, I would throw in the 2 Charleses, Charles Knox and Charles Dobbs, as well as Robert D. Knox. And there's a lot of other ones, obviously. There's others, and maybe I'll do a show about that as well, just to kind of go over all the most important hatters in U.S. history. And then maybe I'll go country by country, right? Thanks to the internet, thanks to ChatGPT, I have the ability to really geek out and share a lot of knowledge with you guys. Just because we don't have those folks alive doesn't mean we don't have historians like the Hatted Professor. There's a really good, actually, Hatted Professor. Hopefully, I'll be able to get Brad Bowers, the Hatted Professor, on here because, again, I'm pretty sure he forgot more than I will ever know, and I'd be honored to have him on here. My cat's actually meowing over there. I don't know what he's meowing about, but yeah, this is a hat made for Dayton's men's store. I don't really have a whole lot to tell you about Dayton's. I don't even know where that is located, to be honest. If Dayton's happens to be in Dayton, Ohio, then maybe that makes sense, or maybe it's just a family name in some store somewhere else in the U.S. But I got to think they're in the U.S. and they might be Dayton, Ohio. Who knows? Shout out to Dayton, Ohio. I've actually been there. I almost went to school in Dayton, Ohio for grad school, but didn't work out. So Dayton's men's store. And obviously, I always pull the sweatband back to kind of just see what I can get. I don't really have a lot of information other than this is probably a hat from the 60s. Right? It's called, so like if that little part here that's kind of dog-eared there shows the style of the hat, it's called the Dart. So this is a Resistol Dart model, and it's a 7 1/4, originally sold for $11.95. The color is listed as black pearl, and then you can even see the brim size here. Very much a stingy brim, right? Some people argue about whether 2 inches counts as a stingy brim or not. It's really that marker. For me, 2 inches and lower is a stingy brim, right? Again, you could ask 100 people and you get 100 different answers. But I feel like I'm confident that 2 inch and lower is something that qualifies as a stingy brim. I don't think too many people will argue that. So yeah, just so you know, if there's a marker for what's a stingy brim, once you get to that 2 inch and lower, you got a verified stingy brim, at least according to Luke. And I don't know if that means anything. Anyhow, that's enough about that specific hat, but we'll talk a little bit more about Resistol, the brand, right? Very iconic brand. History and heritage. Founded in 1927, E.R. Byer and hat maker Harry Rolnick. Sorry, I might have said Holnick, but it's Rolnick. Established the company, initially Byer-Rolnick, in Dallas. Wow, so Dallas, Texas. So shout out to Dallas, Texas. Right? Obviously, Dallas, we know, is a very, very iconic city. Everybody knows about the Dallas Cowboy. They even have their football team called the Dallas Cowboys, who are apparently unhappy these days. So hopefully, if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, I have a brother who happens to be a huge Cowboys fan. He's very upset about recent trade they made, recent decision. I don't know anymore because I don't really watch American football a whole lot. I'm actually a casual fan of the New York Giant football team. But I'm very casual. I don't really know. I don't follow them nearly as much as my New York Mets, who lost last night, by the way. And hopefully we'll still make the playoffs. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, unfortunately we scored a lot of runs last night, but we didn't win. But that's why we play again today. So I'll be watching that today. Shout out to my Mets and shout out to the Giants and shout out to Dallas. Initially Byer-Rolnick in Dallas marketing their creations under the name Resistol, meaning hats that could resist all. Wow, makes sense. Right? That's great name. Meaning hats that could resist all weather effects, or in some accounts, resist scalp oil stains. Wow, there you go. There you go. That hat tip liner, that plastic hat tip liner is probably part of that. And also maybe their felts. Maybe they did something with the felt that made it resist staining. I don't know. You guys can tell me. I'm not the end all and be all when it comes to anything. So Garland expansion in 1938. The company moved to a larger facility in Garland, Texas, where Resistol hats continue to be produced to this day. Shout out to Resistol for still being alive and well. Full vertical integration. They built out facilities for fur cutting and rough body hat production, notably in Longview, Texas, making Resistol, this is interesting here, making Resistol the only U.S. hat maker that controls the entire felt hat production process. Over 200 steps from raw materials to final product. That is fascinating. So there you go. If Resistol can mean anything, they should mean something just for that fact, that they still control the entire felt hat production process all the way with the 200 steps from raw materials to final product. That's huge. So shout out to Resistol. So apparently Resistol went through a lot of ownership changes that I highlight here. They were sold to Cora Corp, which says here is Corette of California in somewhere between 1967 to 1968. In 1979, Cora Corp was acquired by Levi Strauss & Company. Everybody knows Levi Strauss, right? That's an iconic brand. So apparently they owned Resistol for a bit. At some point in 1985, the brand sold, Levi Strauss sold the brand, the Resistol brand, to a businessman called Irving Joel. And then in 2009, the brand is owned by, it looks like a private equity group. So it's called Pro Equine Group. I don't know anything else about that, but equine sounds like they're in the Western apparel business, if you ask me, just judging by the name. So there you go. That is a little bit of history. Let's see what else. Let's see. Cora Corp. So again, just for a little clarity, Cora Corp is the parent company of, or was the parent company that bought Byer-Rolnick it says here 1968, right? So you looked into my my logo right here. It says it's a Byer-Rolnick product. So like if you go here and I blow this up here, you can see here very, very much here. It says Byer-Rolnick product. So by all means, in dating this hat, you can see why I said this hat is at least from the late 60s. Because what we know here is that Byer-Rolnick was bought by Cora Corp in 1968. So that leads me to believe that my hat is sometime from the late 60s. I'm just going to say it's the late 60s until I get better information. Maybe mid to late 60s. It could be even earlier than that. But it's another nice thing that I like about this hat is that it happens to be a hat that was produced by at least the original owners, Byer and Rolnick. Again, another hook. Like that wasn't something that I noticed before I got the hat in my hands. I noticed this after I did the research, and it just happens to be a nice little thing, nice little hook that keeps me owning this hat. So obviously, I won't go into detail here on this other stuff. Obviously, I mentioned the connection to Hatco, right? We mentioned Hatco. Maybe I'll cover Hatco separately in a different stream. I don't want to go really crazy into it. But what you need to know right now, or should know, is that Hatco is a completely separate company to Cora Corp. They were created in 1985 after Levi Strauss sold Resistol and Stetson operations to New York businessman Irving Joel or Irving Joel. Not sure how that's pronounced. Joel consolidated them into Hat Brands Inc., which later became Hatco, sometimes referred to as Hat Company, quote unquote, hence the confusion. Hatco Inc. is still active today in Garland, Texas, and producing Resistol, Stetson, Charlie One Horse, and Wrangler hats. Right? So kind of goes into ChatGPT goes into the key differences between Coracorp and Hatco. So you guys can always pause that and read that. I won't go into this as well, but you guys can pause it and see this as well, just to kind of show you a timeline of the ownership change for Resistol and Stetson from 1927 when Resistol became a formal brand by Byer-Rolnick, all the way down to the current ownership here by the Pro Equine Group / Hatco. So there you go, a little bit of history for your history nerds. Resistol says here, Resistol remains. Let me go and kind of blow this up a little bit so you guys can see a little better. But Resistol remains the last U.S. manufacturer to control the entire felt hat making process from fur to finished hat, a key differentiator in craftsmanship and quality. For straw hats, bodies are often crafted overseas, but all shaping, trimming, and finishing happens in Garland by hand. There's even footage showcasing their meticulous hat making process. So you can see on YouTube, you can look up on YouTube how a Resistol straw hat is made. And if you don't care about that or don't want that, you can look up how a Resistol felt hat is made. I recommend it. I don't think I remember watching that process, but maybe afterwards, after I get something to eat later, I'll do that. So yeah, just a little bit note about their styles and materials. They had a tier system that reminds me very much of the Stetson tier system. They use that X system that's very, very popular, especially for Western hats. They have a 4X, a 10X, and a 100X, indicating rising quality from durable everyday blends to top-tier beaver fur felts that offer softness, lightness, and longevity. Some of the materials, the felt is made from materials such as beaver, rabbit, mink, stable, and wool. Straw hat options include high-grade palm and other fibers. And some of their styles, their signature styles, are classic Western cuts, like the Cattleman, the Prairie Wood, the Black Hills, and the Gambler. They're all part of the Resistol's offering, and they've also produced artists and limited edition collections such as George Strait, Cody Johnson, and Tuff Headman or Heedman. Again, I believe those are country Western singers. I'm not a big country fan, but shout out to my country Western fans and my country Western hat wearers. I do appreciate a lot of your styles. Obviously, the Open Road is a classic. We talked about the Boss of the Plains model by Stetson. All classic hat models. I'm somebody that just appreciates them from afar. Maybe somebody that watches this channel can come on here and talk a little bit more about the Western hat styles and the differentiators and what makes them special, because I really do love learning. So to close out here, it just talks about the cultural significance of some of the hat wearers. We have iconic wearers. Resistol hats have graced icons like John Wayne, Henry Fonda, George Straits, Presidents Lyndon B. Johnson and Ronald Reagan, and legendary figures such as Tom Landry. Uniforms, the Texas Department of Public Safety troopers wear custom Resistol hats. Their color is called Texan as part of their official uniform. Wow, that's really good to know. One popular quote, as Texas Monthly put it, if you are among those behatted hordes and live in Texas, chances are yours is a Resistol, ranging in price from $15 for a straw working man special to $3,000 for a beaver and ermine number. Wow, $3,000! Wow, God bless if you happen to own a $3,000 hat of any variety, let alone a Resistol. That's a lot of coin for any hat. But that's just asking me. Quality control and fit. Resistol's entire production chain ensures unmatched consistency and quality. Fit options are regular, long, wide oval fits from XS to triple XL. They also offer detailed size charts to guide popular hat fitting. Um, Proper hat fitting, not popular, sorry. Anecdotes and customer notes. Vintage and collectible interest. Resistol hats from the Byer-Rolnick era, pre-1968, are very sought after. Example, a mid-1960s silver belly felt hat found on a Reddit discussion, was estimated at $60 to $100, depending on the condition. So shout out to Reddit and shout out to Resistol. Looks like this hat will fall into that time period, right? Pegging it as mid 60s to late 60s. So if you're ever interested and you want to make me an offer, you do that. Like I said, I may or may not sell it depending on the day or whatnot or the price. But maybe, like I said, I got a lot of hats. So if you want this hat more than I do, then maybe we can work out a deal. But yeah, modern buyer feedback. A Reddit user praised the Resistol 20X black gold felt for its quick break-in and superior fit, especially for long oval heads where Stetsons often don't fit as well. Wow, I didn't know that. So if you have a long oval, according to this Redditor, apparently, if you have a long oval and your Stetson doesn't fit quite right, maybe you need to grab yourself a Resistol, and then you let me know if that's good feedback or not, good advice. I don't wear Western hats, so I may not know any better, but this is just what ChatGPT gave me. And then the last customer service caveat. Some users report fulfillment issues ordering from Resistol's official website, advising alternatives like local retailers or stores such as Boot Barn for a smoother experience. So there you go. Shout out to those folks that share, right? This is Reddit is another source for hat knowledge. It's not one that I lean on. I do use Reddit a lot, but I don't usually get a lot of my hat information from Reddit. I usually get it from ChatGPT, as you can obviously tell. I get it from the Fedora Lounge, which is a very rich resource, and I get it from the Facebook groups as well as just general Google searches. And I see what I find and I take my chances there. So shout out to Resistol and shout out to all the entities lined up with Resistol, and shout out to Byer-Rolnick, right? A very rich brand, a very iconic brand that they created back in 1927, and led me to want to own a piece of it, right? So regardless of whether you're a Western hat fan or not, there's probably a Resistol out there for you. One thing I will note that in the brand, this is just something that I learned in viewing a lot of the vintage hats, Resistol hats. At some point, Resistol changed the shape of the O. I don't know. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head when they did that. But maybe sometime before this O was a different shape. I think it was shaped like a lasso or something like that. I forget what it's shaped. It's shaped like an O, but it's more like more oval and egg shaped than this O that you see here on my hat. I don't remember what year that happened, but it is another useful indicator for Resistol in terms of dating your particular example. And if somebody comes on here and knows exactly, like they know more information that I just provided, then feel free to share that, because again, I learn, sometimes I learn in different ways. Usually somebody has to kind of show me for me to learn it. So I'm going to stop sharing this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I have no idea, but hopefully you did. And yeah, this is before I close out, I mentioned yesterday that I'm going to give away this hat eventually, right? So this is my Knox fedora. This is probably from the 60s. It's a Knox fedora. That way you can kind of see the shape. This is apparently from a Canadian production. It's a 7 1/4. I'll flip it this way. You'll see that it is a 7 1/4. Right. That way you can kind of see the angle here. Hopefully I don't cause a catastrophe here. You see the iconic Knox symbol there. But apparently this hat has been food for a lot of moth, well, at least several moths, or maybe one moth that had a lot of food on this hat. As far as I know, this hat has not incurred any extra damage, right? So I don't think it has any eggs. Obviously, I'm gonna just say that for out of full disclosure. This very much looks like an Austrian, kind of like the Tyrolean style, like it's a trilby hat. I saw it. It has that rope style that I'm not a huge fan of. But maybe you want to go and take this hat and just put a bunch of, maybe that's a good use of this hat. Maybe you're a fan of like those hat pins, right? We talked about the Tyrolean style and you putting a bunch of hat pins. Maybe this is just a hat that you can either refurbish, right? My buddy Ian mentioned that this hat maybe could be refurbished with some restoration process. I'm not a big, I don't know much about that process. I'm not somebody that refurbishes hats. I just buy them and I keep them as is. But I bought this hat and I just never wear it. And I figure I should give it a good new home. So I started off yesterday saying that I'm going to wait till the 50 subscriber mark after conferring with my board of directors, right? Shout out to my board of directors, my Good Luke's board of directors. Morgan was of the opinion that I should wait until the 100 subscriber mark. So hopefully nobody's upset that I'm going to switch this over and then just give away this hat once I reach 100 subscribers. So what I'll do is, instead of 50 subscribers, I will go and let me make sure that I do put that banner out there. If you haven't already done so, please help us reach that 50 subscriber mark. But once we hit the 100 subscriber mark, I will go and I will give away this hat to one, probably randomly, right? I will probably randomly draw. I'll create a video with this hat as the video topic, right? I'll talk about Knox. I'll talk about this hat and everything that I know about this hat. And then what I'll do is I'll open it up to anybody that drops a comment, right? Either on the live stream or shortly thereafter the live stream. If you drop a comment and are able to show me a screenshot of you being subscribed to Good Luke's, you will be randomly entered, right? Now, again, if I go and I do that and nobody participates or nobody does that, then I don't know. I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do then. Maybe I'll just wait to 150 subscribers or whatnot. I just want to make sure I have a decent number of folks potentially in it to win it, right? And maybe they'll have a chance to win this hat. Now, I will caution you, I have a lot of international viewers, and I want to open it up to you, but I'm going to ask you guys to cover the shipping. So regardless, I'll try to figure out, if you win this hat, I'll ask you for your address. And hopefully it's a hat that fits you, right? It's a 7 1/4. If it doesn't fit you, and you still want to win it, maybe you can give it to a buddy. Or what you can do, and this is another option, and I'll leave it up to you if you win this hat. If you win this hat and you say, Luke, this hat, I don't have a good home for it. It won't fit me, but I want to pay it forward to somebody else, right? Maybe somebody that you want it to go to or whatnot, or maybe you just want me to send it directly to them, right? Maybe there's somebody in another part, right? And you're willing to cover the shipping. I will work with you, right? And we will figure it out. We'll find a new home for this hat. I think it's a nice color. Obviously, it's been chewed up by either a couple moths or one hungry moth, but it's not in that terrible of a shape. And some people I know like the trilby. And some people I know like the iconic green color. It's very much looking like an alpine hat, even though I don't think it qualifies. It's definitely not Germanic. It is by Knox. And we already talked about Knox as a brand of Hat Corporation of America. This just happened to have some sort of indicator that said it came from Germany. So this hat will go to a new home. Who knows? Maybe I'll give away some more of my hats in a future stream. I just want to kind of incentivize you subscribing and liking the videos and dropping comments, interacting with me. I'm going to try to at least reward those that interact with me and rock with me, because again, I want to pay it, and hopefully you guys will pay it forward. So yeah, so just give you an update. Instead of the 50 subscriber mark, I will give this away. The plan is after 100 subscribers. And again, I say subscribe now, right? If you haven't done so, subscribe now. That way, when this hat comes up, you don't have to find yourself, not qualifying because you're not a subscriber. I will probably just make you take a screenshot and send it to me either by email or somehow, some way, however we can do it, maybe through Facebook. And then I can verify that you're a subscriber, that you dropped the comment, and then I get your address, and then we'll work out the shipping. I usually like to ship my hats out priority. If that's something that you want to do and you're okay doing, I think priority hat shipping is somewhere, depending, it like ranges, at least within the continental United States. Priority shipping costs about between $20 and 26 and change. So we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. I mean, we're not going to be like hard and fast here, but hopefully this hat will go to a new owner. And who knows, if that owner is you and you like it, maybe I'll bring you on video here and you can show off your hat and tell me what you think of the hat, and what your plans are for the hat. Hopefully it's something decent, and if you're going to enjoy it, that's great. If you know a family member or a friend is going to enjoy it, maybe it'll be their first hat, maybe it'll be your first hat. Whatever it is, I want to know about it. Maybe you can kind of pay it forward back to me by telling me what you where the hat is and what it means to you in your hat journey, right? So this is all about creating new hat people, right? This channel is obviously for current hat nerds, but also for the future hat nerd, right? So those that really want to know and want to ask questions in an environment where they can do that in a very safe environment. You're not going to get somebody here in front of you saying, "Well, you don't know that? Oh man." You know what I mean? Like, we don't need that. Like, we don't have that here. I won't stand for it either. So anyway, shout out to Ian for rocking with me and all the great suggestions. Ian, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, this has been Hat Chat number 25, right? We hit the quarter century mark. I'm going to close this out. I can't believe it, man. Hat Chat number 25. Obviously, I'll tell you to hit the like and subscribe button. It's very much an achievement, right? I'm going to give myself a little medal here, an achievement medal for hitting Hat Chat number 25. This is a momentous occasion, and I'm glad you guys were here to share it with me. Hat Chat number 25. The hat of the day was this Resistol fedora from the 1960s, I believe. Great brand, iconic brand, and really just again, I shared why I got the hat to begin with, and hopefully you guys learned a little bit about that. And just thanks for rocking with me. I'll keep doing these hat chats for as long as my energy levels allow me to. So besides liking, subscribing, I'm just gonna ask you one favor. Just one little favor, if you can, oblige me. Just stay hatting, my friend. Thank you. Have a great day. Ciao.